from Boston and beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeartStation.
Tonight's episode of Conversations with Coach La is brought to you by Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. Do you need to delegate some tasks, or are you looking to declutter a space? Well, assign it to her. Introducing Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. She's currently accepting new clients and offers a variety of back office services depending on your needs. Contact Shamina at 857-273-1528, 857-273-1528, or email shaminaaustin@gmail.com for more information.
Conversations with Coach La.
Coach La, your favorite neighborhood therapist, having real hard convos, contrasting pessimists. Generational trauma explored, broach delicate, getting to the root of the pain, healing impediments. Every week signs copay free lessons. Bet on self, trust the process, no questions. Feel your feels, journey to be healed, no stressing. Conversations with Coach La's now in session.
Sunday nights at 10 p.m. On the air and just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. If you got something on your mind, you can call in, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in now, oh, we get a business to empower you so that you can do anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the air and just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La.
Hey. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La. Well, it's come to another episode of Coach La 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 La. Oh, I got too many things going on. This is what happens. Okay, I got it right now. Had the volume up on the computer. Y'all was hearing all this extra noise. What y'all doing? How y'all feeling? Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La. Your favorite around the way therapist. It is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all you wonderful dads. It's a bittersweet day for me. You guys know it's going on 7 years since my dad passed away. So tonight's show is actually dedicated to him. We're going to be talking about a lot of good things, a lot of things connected to fatherhood, being a provider, and what all of that looks like, what that feels like with societal constructs and all of that good stuff. You know, this season has been and has started off with redefining success, your personal, professional, and financial growth. Last season, we started talking about the barriers to healing, growth, and transformation. And then we went a little bit deeper and started to think about what we needed to do internally to really start to look at the past and start to heal from some of those generational and societal wounds and how those things shape us. And we went on a self-discovery journey with every single guest that came onto the show. Now, what we want to do is we want to really start to redefine the definitions that we have for success, because I think those really, really do play into how we see ourselves and what we think about the world. And sometimes that also feeds into our mental health, right? Because everybody has mental health, but these different things can feed into your mental health in either a healthy or unhealthy way. So series 3 of season 7 is all about focusing on redefining success and looking at it from a professional, personal, and then how does that all tie into your financial growth? Because everybody want to get a bag, right? Everybody want to feel like they're doing well in life. So I had to go and find one of my guests from, from when I started. So this show has been going on for 3 years. I cannot believe that. So this 3 years. So I went back and I said, who is one of my guests that can come and add some value and some depth to this conversation? So I went and found one of my experts in this area. Now, he is a financial educator. He actually worked for Boston Public Schools for 11 years. He has a range of financial knowledge where he's helped businesses and families with financial solutions and guidance. He's a financial service provider who his primary goal is to help his clients achieve their financial objectives and improve their overall financial well-being. So, when I heard the word well-being, I said, yeah, that's the guy for me, right? Because he looks at it from a very holistic place. So I want to bring onto the stage my friend, my financial guru, Mr. James Leveque. Let me get your camera on here. I didn't even get your camera going. Hold on. He coming, y'all. He coming. Hold on. See, I was moving. Then get my camera together. I know. There he is. There he is. What's going on? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I love your theme song.
Thank you for that.
I love that.
Yeah, you're looking like the Men in Black.
You know how we do. We had to pull up. We had to get in gear because we know how this conversation is going to go with the therapist, your favorite therapist from around the way. So yes, I came through.
I appreciate that. Shout out again to all of the dads and everybody who's tuning in. That's a father that represents a father figure or a mentor. And one of the reasons why I brought you on too is because often we only look at one aspect of fatherhood and we forget about the mentors, the uncles, the father figures. And you do a lot of work with the youth.
Yes.
Right? So who is James Leveque? If you had to break it down beyond the bios and beyond, what people can Google, who's James Leveque?
Great question. James Leveque is a number one, he's a humble servant of the Most High God. He's a father. He's a son. He's a student. He's an overall good black man.
Okay. He said,
talk to him. Let's go, baby. I'm here.
A good black man.
We're a good black man. Shout out to all the beautiful black brothers out here. Happy Father's Day to you guys. We deserve it. We deserve our day.
We do.
You know what I mean?
Y'all
Hopefully you had a great day. You had you was served some barbecue chicken or some salmon, on your plate. You're feeling good. You got your toes rubbed. You got your back rubbed.
He's acting up, y'all. Listen. Wait, this. Thank God this is late night talk show.
Yeah.
This is a late night talk show. He said he hope you got your feet rubbed.
Listen, I'm sorry, Coach. I got my family with me here, man. My best friend and his sisters here, man. We just been having an unbelievable day. So, the energy's high right now. So
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I said, wait, I don't remember you being like this the last time you came on the show.
Hey,
you was in your financial professional mode. We're gonna have to dial it down just a little bit. Just dial it down just a tad.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna ask.
Okay.
But talk to him, Jay.
Yes.
Right. So you have a whole platform where you talk to people about financial services and you talk to primarily the youth, right? You do a lot of work around the youth. And I think thinking about Father's Day, fatherhood, being a black man, one of the things that comes up for me immediately is the idea of being a provider.
Mm-hmm.
And how that social construct either plays into the development of you as a dad or a father in a positive or in a not so positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about what you think about that in terms of like being a financial service representative and the idea of helping people secure wealth and be great providers. How do you think that has either positively or negatively impacted you as a black man or as a dad?
Great question. I definitely feel like it has impacted me because it allowed me to really, number one, look at my own finances, right? Because you got to look at self, because you can't help others until you help yourself, right? So because when you come to his finances, man, it's a very sensitive topic, so you definitely gotta, handle it as such, and a lot of times in our community, I would say it's there's certain conversations that doesn't happen until it's too late,
Okay.
right? And
yeah. One of the big ones, like grief.
Yes.
Thank goodness my father did the best that he could, but he did leave some things to make sure that we could take care of his needs,
Right.
And make sure that we didn't have to do a GoFundMe. We didn't have to, figure out how to bury him. He did that, he did the best he could, which left the foundation for the rest of his kids to do the same thing.
Right.
But you're right. A lot of times people don't have their ducks in a row and then they unexpectedly pass away, and there's no life insurance. There's no retirement. There's just nothing.
So,
right?
So when you go towards that, right, it's actually, the focus is on building up. They call it building up your financial home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which in actuality, you're building yourself up. So you actually got to start off with your foundation. So for me, my foundation is, is God, you know what I mean? And I'm not unapologetic about that. You know what I mean? That's where my source comes from. That's where everything comes from. That's when, when everything goes away, what's my foundation, right? It's God, and when you talk about finances, the storms is going to come in life. People's going to pass away. You know what I mean? That's just life, right? But can you stand the rain? You know what I mean? Can you stand the rain?
And it's true, rainy days are going to come.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things I really have come to terms with, and a lot of people probably should consider this, right, is life is going to life.
Yes.
Hard times are coming. Difficulty is coming. Challenges are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner we can all learn to manage our emotions and build our capacity to actually understand that life is not going to be smooth. And I don't know why some of us have been conditioned to think so, that if you do great and you do everything you're supposed to do, everything's going to go well.
Right.
That's not the case. You could be investing all your money, and all of a sudden when you need it, it's when the market is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to sell your house and move. The market is the worst. Mm-hmm. The worst time that you would need to sell, you need to sell it. So it's not always going to go perfectly.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a hard thing to stomach when you feel like you've done everything perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So, you saved your money. You were very frugal with your what you needed to do with your finances,
mm-hmm.
and you listened to everything that everybody told you to do, and something awful, it tanks.
Yeah.
Right. During your retirement.
Right.
Some things you just can't predict. And I think that's why some people don't necessarily want to worry about preparing for that, because they have that mindset to listen, I'll deal with it when it comes.
Yeah. But that's the poverty mindset, because we're not planning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You got to plan. You know what I mean? You got to plan. It's called unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
Right. You got to plan for those, you know what I mean? Because you don't know what's going to be happening. Right.
Uh-huh.
But you always got to address it. And then if you're leaving it for another time, you know what I mean? Then you already know what's going to come after that.
I'd rather be on the side of taking more shots than not taking the shot at all and
mm-hmm.
guaranteeing that I'm not going to make it. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think you should prepare. Right. And then also keep in mind that even with that preparation, there's still unexpected.
Absolutely.
And it's going to happen. But I'd rather have the money in there than not having no money at all.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Even now, right? I've had some clients who's, because of the downturn of the market, they was kind of worried about what they're going to do with their money. Just like you just said, they're getting ready to retire. And I'm like, yo, just hold off. Just keep calm, right?
Yeah,
it's just about weathering the storms in life, right? You know what I mean? And that's why you need a strong That's why you need a strong foundation. You know what I mean? If you don't believe in God, you need to stop believing in God. You know what I mean?
I just prayed today. One of the things that today, so I'm in the stage of my life, and this is gonna seem for some like, oh, that's nothing, but others, y'all are gonna get it. Y'all are gonna understand where I'm coming from. Every time I go to get gas, I can fill my tank up.
Mhm.
If you've ever been in that case where you're like, can I get $5 on pump number 2?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, well, you can't fill your tank up. College life was hard.
Yes.
But I literally said, wow, when I go to the gas station, I don't have to sit and wonder if I can fill my tank up. You know what? I thanked God for that.
That's an accomplishment.
Right? Because that was something that I used to freak out about.
Yeah.
If a repair my car needed, I would be like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to take care of it. So there's so many things that I think sometimes when we are still reaching for more, we forget where we came from to be able to say, you know what? Thank you for not being where I was.
Mhm.
You know, I'm doing much better than I used to be.
Yeah, giving us that grace, man.
Yeah.
You know, that grace, and just looking at, like, you know, looking at the positive. You know what I mean? If you could fill your gas car up,
I'm telling you.
if you could go to Costco's
It's the
and
little
fill
things,
or
it's the little
BJ's
things,
and
it's the
fill your
little-
gas car up,
It's the little things.
oh man, you know what I mean? You winning.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
you winning.
So James, tell me,
Yes.
how did financial literacy become your calling? Where did that?
So a lot of these things, I say it happened by accident, but nothing is accident when you're a servant of the Most High. He kind of breeds you into what it is that he wants you to, you know, the direction that he wants you to go in. And honestly, I was meeting clients and I was, you know, doing my presentation, and they'll be like, man, how come they never taught us this in school? Like literally like 30 something times, you know? And I never really, you know, thought nothing of it. But it's not until like my partner, Angie, Dr. Ann, shout out to Dr. Ann. She's in the public health sector, and she actually approached me about she was getting her master's in public health, and she approached me about you know, putting together something for the community that would alleviate mental health, right, financially. So, you know, with my background in education and her background in public health and, you know, in finances, we put together this financial literacy course, man, and we geared it towards our young people because, you know, they need this. You know what I mean? This is something that they're not having these conversations. And I really think like what's really sets us apart is the fact that, you know, we're speaking their language. We're not talking over their heads. We're making it fun to actually learn about money, right? We're connecting it with the lyrics that's in the hip hop lyrics. You know what I mean? So we're just bringing you in. You know what I mean? We're bringing you in, but we teaching
Making
you,
it relatable.
Yeah, we teaching you about the rule of 72, theory of decreasing responsibilities, building up your financial home, and also having those conversations as well too. You know what I mean? And you know, I never really thought about this, but this one lady said to me, she was there as a parent. I guess I think one of hers, you know, her daughters was there. She was like, wow, I've never seen this class run by a black man before. It's usually little white guys. And she said that was so powerful. And I was like, wow, you know, like, and I didn't know, you know what I mean? So which was kind of cool because, you know, in this space, you know, I'm like, you don't really see that many of us. Yeah. You know, you don't really see that much of us. So, you know, just really trying to, you know, plant seeds within the within our young people as well too. You know what I mean? Because they always going to remember, yo, I remember you. You know what I mean? You was that guy. Talk to him. Jay. You was that guy that was, and believe it or not, they be pulling up on me, man, showing me love. And you just planting a lot of seeds, man. I plant a lot of seeds, and eventually, man, those seeds is gonna bloom and they're gonna blossom at the, you know, and we don't know when, you know what I mean? But eventually they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
and when I've seen your videos, a lot of the youth that you are talking to happen to be a lot of our young black men.
Yeah.
So think about this. For many men, especially in communities of color, being a provider is deeply tied to their identity, their self-worth, and masculinity. When finances are strained, it is not just about dollars, it's about value. So struggles with money can trigger shame, inadequacy, and even internalized failure. And because asking for help is often perceived as weakness, these feelings get buried. So I think, you know, having courses like yours that are bringing to the forefront, talking about money, strategies about money, I think makes it a lot easier to begin those conversations at a young age, because I think we just say, you know what, you're the man of the house now. Some places say this, not everybody, but this concept of you're the man of the house now, you're a provider. I have a 19-year-old, soon to be 20-year-old son.
Ooh.
And we've been talking about, you know, the idea of him wanting a family and wanting a wife and what that all means to one day have to be responsible for a whole bunch of people, right? When he's just still trying to figure out how to take care of himself and be a provider. So if you don't have like good parents or you don't have a father figure, men are just expected to just know what to do.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I just think a lot of the times we're kind of winging it. You know, we're doing the best thing that we could, you know, without like having like a blueprint. You know what I mean? There's no blueprint towards this. You know, most brothers that I know, they're doing the best thing that they could. They trying to figure it out, you know, how to make wifey happy, how to, you know, like keep a roof over their head, how to, you know, make sure the children is good, all these things, right? And then on top of that, they got to deal with their own emotions, their own, you know, failures or success or whatever it is that they're going through internally, right? So, but there's no blueprint towards it. And the thing too, I've noticed about men, we don't have no group. You know what I mean? Like women be having groups. They meet with each other. Girl, guess what happened? Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Guys, we can't really do that. If we're going through something, we kind of go through it alone, right? Because we feel like a little bit embarrassed. We feel a little bit of whatever it is, you know what I mean? And honestly, man, we need a group of brothers, man, you know, that really understands, you know, that's gone through certain things in life that can kind of help, you know, the younger generation, you know what I mean? Especially like just knowing how to, you know, emotional intelligence, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the times, you know, with that pressure of raising a family and having to deal with other people's emotions and all these things, you don't know, and it comes at you fast. Right. And then that's how you see a lot of brothers crashing out. You know what I mean? They crashing out. They feel like, they got to, you know, keep up this persona or keep up with the Joneses. Like, and honestly, man, you just got to be good within. You know what I mean? And when you're good within and just knowing how to be good within. And I've learned, you know, just breathing. You know, a lot of us, we don't breathe correctly. We're not even taking full breaths. You know what I mean? We're taking shallow breaths. You know what I mean? Just breathing, going out. You know, taking care of yourself, waking up early in the morning, you know, moving your body, right? Let me ask you a question. If you're listening to this right now, right, how many throughout, let's say, the last 7 days, right, did you go outside and get some sun? Did you take your shoes off and plant your feet, you know, on the pavement or on the grass? How many people did that?
Right.
How many people did that? Not that many. You know what I mean? So getting in tune with the earth, you know, a lot of, you know, to the average person, right? That might be like, man, what is this dude talking about, man? Going outside and talking this. But it's you getting in tune with the earth, you know, and you learning about yourself. You know what I mean? You getting stronger, you knowing how the universe works, and you're getting connected with God. You know what I mean? Because you know, it's the universe and nature, right? So you're getting in tune with that. And all that starts with you, and it's free. You know what I mean?
No, but free. there's a lot of science to what you're talking about in terms of mental health, which brings me to my next question. Was what does therapy mean to you? And I think you just touched on a lot of what therapy means is nature, you know, going outside, connecting with your spirituality. When you say universe, and even putting your feet in the grass, and, you know, all of those things, right? Believe it or not, release endorphins, and it also brings out the serotonin, all of those things that actually help you feel better.
Absolutely.
Right. Get in sunlight. So I know it sounds like, oh, what is he talking about? He's talking about go outside, frolic. You ever seen that Instagram video? And they got all the black men out there running around talking about let's go frolic.
Yes.
Right. Like, but there is a lot of benefit to just allowing yourself to be in a playful state, and to just run and exercise. All that stuff is really, 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 really good for your overall well-being. Now, there are some consequences that we sort of look at when people start to experience financial trauma.
Mhm.
When I say financial trauma, what do you think about?
You think about like the financial trauma that you had probably coming up, right? Whether it's maybe you might have had to go to the store and you had to use like an EBT card, right?
Okay.
That's like, a little bit of financial trauma. Maybe your card might have declined while you're, you're around like a pretty girl or something like that.
Okay.
Right? Like these are you might not really think these things. It messes with your mind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, those make sense to me.
I've been there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I've been there when your card gets declined and you in front of a pretty little ting too. What? You're like, what?
Not just even just with that, but just in general, like going in a store and it just doesn't go through and you're getting groceries, or you got to take some stuff and put it back.
Yes.
Or if you've ever had any of your utilities get shut off, or
that's the worst.
Had a pre-foreclosure or lost a home, all of these things, right, can really cause damage to your ability to feel secure.
Right.
If you've ever been fired from a job,
yes.
All these type of things feed into, I think traumatic experiences with money. So when you do work with your clients, how do you unpack when people have true fears about like loss? Like a lot of people don't want to invest because they have financial trauma.
Yeah.
There's also people who have multiple jobs for fear.
Right.
They work themselves to the bone because they don't want to ever go without. So they work so hard that they take no breaks.
Right. So one of the things that we do is we take like a holistic approach, right? And we do like we sit down and we do like a F&A. If you don't know what a F&A is, that's a financial needs analysis, right? So it's kind of like, let me give you a comparison. Like, let's say if you go towards the doctor's trying to figure it out, like what's going on with you, right? And as a financial strategist, right, my job is to figure out, okay, what's your cash flow? How much money you got coming in? Because as long as you got money coming in, right, we can figure something out, right? We can figure out, okay, this is what you need to pay this. This is what you're going to need to save. Because at the end of the day, I always tell people, who's the first person that you got to pay?
Yourself.
Exactly, right? You got to make sure that you pay yourself first, right? And believe it or not, it sounds like a simple concept. People don't really do that. They figure out, I got to pay this rent. I got to pay this mortgage. I got to pay whatever, car note, whatever it is, right? But they don't really put themselves first, right? Got to make sure you put yourself first, So we do like an F&A, and the F&A, it goes through all the numbers, go through all the programs, all of that, and then it spits everything out at you, right? And then now once you're looking at the numbers, sometimes it's pretty humbling. Right. It's very humbling because you're like, oh, man, I got this. I got to do this. I got to do that. But that's OK. As long as you know the numbers, now you can actually make the necessary adjustments. Maybe you may have to cut back from the Starbucks. Right. You may have to cut back from, eating out. Right. You may have to pack your lunch. You may have to, pack your dinners or whatever it is. Right. Because the goal is to actually take what you was spending at Starbucks, spending at Dunkin' Donuts, and actually put that into an interest-bearing account, right? So just really finding out about you, right? And I'm doing that with the F&A, but you got to do that within yourself as well too, because it really goes hand in hand. It really goes hand. Yeah, it's finances, but man, finances have to do with your spirit being as well too, because I don't know about you, but when I don't got no money in my pockets, boy,
I'm glad you just said that, because some of the things that are associated with money, right? Anxiety. So like when you're not sure how you're gonna pay something and you're worried about where you're gonna get the money from, anxiety, depression, right? Depression, just being sad and being unmotivated, just sort of being in a cloud. You're moving and getting things done, but you don't really feel connected to the work you're doing. You can have poor relationships,
absolutely,
right? Like biggest factor for most marriages is money and sex.
Yes,
those are two major reasons,
and they go hand in hand too.
Get divorced.
Yeah,
granted, right? Your money's not right. You might not really want to have sex.
Nah,
so and then there's increased risks of substances, alcoholism, things like that. So there are a lot of reasons why what you're saying about having a financial needs analysis and knowing where you are is so important. And I think for men who don't know, I think sitting down and just getting a plan, right? I think for a lot of my male clients, they want strategies,
Right.
plans, tasks, so that they can see
Yeah.
why and what they're doing, where it's leading them to.
Yeah. And kind of to piggyback on what it is that you're saying, right? It's not just the F&A, but it's also, you know, God forbid what, you know, making sure like your wills, like your trust, your power of attorney, right? Because I had a client that you know, her husband had passed away, right? And she wasn't on any of she wasn't on his will, or he didn't get a chance to do his will, right? And she had her, so once you pass away, if somebody's not on your will or any of those things, like your assets goes towards probate. You know what I mean? And she had to go for like 6, 7, even 8 months trying to get into like her husband's account so she can, you know, do what she has to do, you know. And a lot of people go through that, you know what I mean? They go through
and
that.
again,
So,
that's back to communication and a lack of planning and possibly even trust.
Right.
You know, are you trusting your partner? So again, according to the APA, financial stress is the number one stressor in the United States for over 60% of adults. So you know, in that, you know, that is including men, right? You know, that's a combination of men and women. But overall, financial post-traumatic stress disorder, I was like, that's a thing. Is often linked to chronic instability, generational poverty, and systemic barriers. So there's a lot of reasons, right, that I think, especially for men, that having this conversation about money and finances is so important, because I feel like it's a driver for so many things, and it's at the root cause for so many things at the same time.
Yeah. So the thing too is, like, in America, and living in America, I see that one thing I see is that people are like, and this is no knock against Americans, right? Because, you know, I live in America. I'm blessed to be here. I'm a guest in America. But looking at it from an objective perspective, it's like we connect our worth with our money, with our bank account.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not, that's not what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, what's your spirit like? You know, what's your character like? You know, what kind of man are you? Where do you stand at? You know what I mean? Like,
and they say if you go after your dreams and your goals, and you do things that actually bring you joy, that you're good at, the money will follow.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes we chase the money, and by chasing the money, I think that's when you're stressed, you're depressed, because the money's ruling you. Right. And you can't be ruled by the money.
No.
You know, if you lose everything, you still have yourself.
Absolutely. Right. But also we're people who have gone through so much, you know what I mean? So we look at, that's why we buy like expensive, you know, jewelry or expensive designers, because we feel like those things is going to bring us the value, you know what I mean? And these things is really deep rooted, you know what I mean? From the music that we listen to, the movies that we watch, we thinking like, man, once we get that first 100,000 or that first $1 million, we gonna have value. That's what's gonna bring us value. As you see, if your character is not right, if your inner man is not right, you can have that $1 million, but
you'll ruin it.
Gonna drop it.
I mean, and we can see a lot of that happening across the board with people who have become quite wealthy, but due to their character and their decisions and just not having their mindset in the right place, they've put themselves in some pickles. Sean,
some pickles.
Some pickles. R. Kelly, P. Diddy, you know, Sean Combs, you know that guy?
Man.
He's in a pickle right now. But you know, the other thing, and I'm wondering what you think about this, men are less likely to seek help for mental health, and especially for, you know, things like financial stress. They'll go to the bar, you know, maybe even go and get them a lady friend or something to go lay down with, but to actually sit and talk about it is typically not what they want to do. Now, I've been told, because what's the point of talking about it? Given that your name is Talk to Him, Jay, right? Why do you think men don't want to talk? about these things?
Because nobody's listening. Who ain't gonna listen to you, dog?
Really?
Nah, yo.
You don't
might
think
find-
nobody's listening, or is it,
Listen,
or is
I'ma
it really that
Coach
they don't
Lyle,
want to
man.
be seen as weak?
Nah, that too, right?
Okay.
But
So you really don't think anybody's listening? Tell me. I'm
as a man is very lonely.
Okay.
You know, and you gotta be willing to go through towards that loneliness. You know what I mean? Even if you gotta cry, you're gonna cry on your own, right? Don't cry, don't be, because if you're looking for attention, you're looking for somebody to feel bad for you. Like, nah, you go in that corner, you cry, you get it all out, right? Get it all out, you know, and then dry your eyes and then sit down and we're gonna figure it out, right? Because it's very lonely as a man. I don't know what to tell you, right? Because guess what? It that's why you need a higher power. You know what I'm saying? That's why you need a higher power. You need somebody to lean on. You know what I mean? Because people, you might get a couple of people who's gonna listen to you, but honestly, man, it's very lonely as a man. You know what I mean? And if you're looking for support, yeah, you might find a couple of people, right? You might find that, you know what I mean? But honestly, man, it's very lonely as a man. You're gonna have to figure it out as a man. You're gonna have to. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to. And that's what part of becoming a man is all about. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you may put yourself in a pickle, right? But eventually you're gonna have to figure out, how do I get myself out of this? You know, God, I need you. You know what I mean? Until you get into that position, you're like, yo, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? You gotta call on the mighty one. You know what I'm saying? He gotta call on the mighty one. We ain't talking to God. You know, we got to get back to talking to God. Talk to him. Let's go. Talk to him. You know, we got to get back to talking to God because he knows what we're going through. He knows our stress. He knows the problems already. You know what I mean? He knows it. You know what I mean? But you got to talk to him and you got to listen. That's where the meditation comes in. Right?
Okay, now listen,
and then he's going to tell you exactly what you need to do because he's talking to your inner man. Shoot. You know what I mean?
You guys are listening to Conversations with Coach La. I got my man 50 grand. Talk to him, James Leveque in the building. This is my special Father's Day edition. So we are unpacking mind and money. Mind, money, your money mindset, and overcoming financial trauma. Because I think that we don't talk about financial trauma enough and how that could be playing into some of the things that men go through, right? You know, if you don't have enough money, or, you know, you was talking to a young lady and she clowned you because you didn't have all the money, or she went with the guy who had the money, you know, or you grew up just seeing poverty and people saying there was never enough money. There was always lack. So I think those things can make you either hyper focused on success, or I would say helpless, right? Where you feel like there's no point, right? I think people are usually on one end of the spectrum. They're either really, really focused and they work really, really hard. Those A-type personalities, overachievers, or the people that sort of throw their hands up and go, what's the point? I'm never gonna get out of this situation. No one around me's ever gotten out of this situation. So I might as well just, you know, join with the rest of the crowd, go on this corner and grab this beer and just, you know.
Yeah, that's people who lose hope.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They lose hope.
You can't lose hope,
right?
out here.
And so I think that you always have both of those types of people. And you say, well, wait a minute, how did this person come up out of that? And this person is still in this situation. And I'm speaking more so towards the men right now, right? Like you'll have those brothers that will see all of that going around them and they'll go in a different direction. Sometimes they're in the same household. They could be brothers. And one goes, you know, the street route, or goes the, you know, the more criminal mind, and the other one takes a positive route, goes to school and does other things. What do you think? What mindset shifts do you think happen with those two individuals?
Choices. We all got choices, man. You know what I mean? We all got choices. We could see what we could be in the same house, but our perspective is different. So our choices is going to be different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy being a man. You know, I think like a lot of the times people might, because of social media, it might look, you know, but it's not easy at all. You know what I mean? There's a lot of responsibility that comes with this. There's a lot of regret. There's a lot of like, oh man, if you being real, you know what I mean? A lot of time we try to put on this persona, but honestly, man, you got to be real. You know what I mean? You got to be real with yourself. And it goes back towards choices to answer your question, right? Everybody has 24 hours and everybody has choices. And sometimes we might see somebody make a choice and we see where it ends up, where they end up or how they end up looking. You're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Right? I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to try everything that is that I need to do to not go down that route. And then other times people like, you know what? I can't do it anymore. You know what I mean? So it's a mindset. What are we listening to? What are we watching with our eye gate? What are we listening to with our ear gate? Right? All these things play into the choices, into the person that we're becoming, right? We're just not human beings, we're human becomings because we're constantly, evolving, we're constantly changing. You know what I mean? So you're not the same person that you were when I was out here last time, right? You've changed. Look at you. You still fly. You know what I mean? You still fly, but right, you're not the same person. I'm not the same person.
I said that to someone. Some people try, they'll say that they feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I challenge that narrative of stuck, because regardless if you want to acknowledge it or not, everything is still moving.
Right.
And that became a real reality for me when my dad passed away. 7 years have gone by since my father passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless if I want to or not, things are moving. Time is moving. Things are moving. People are changing. People come and go. It's inevitable that things are going to move. It's just whether or not you move with it or do you fight against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, unfortunately, people are going to die.
Yes.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the hardest realities that we all have to grasp, is that you're going to die. I'm going to die. Everybody's going to die. I could die right now when I leave out of here. I don't know. This could be my last show.
Right.
I don't want to get y'all all sad and stuff, but it's just true.
Yes.
So I say all of that to say, we have to start loving ourselves a lot more and being in a place of gratitude. And I think when I think about our brothers, and this is something for the women, if you have a husband or you have any men in your life that you care about, your sons, your brothers, your uncles, is to really be able to, pour into them.
Right.
To tell them that you love them, tell them that they're doing a good job. Pick out more things that they do well than what they're not doing well.
And
I think that the world would be a different place if we all started to say, you know what, you do a really good job at that.
Yeah.
Or I like when you did this. Or you know what, you should keep doing that. That you really do well at that. We are so quick to tell people what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, Coach La, right? That's the power of femininity.
Yes.
Right? Like people talk about the masculine and the alpha, all these different things, right? And I was having this conversation with this girl who said, like, I'm an alpha female, because I'm like, yo, there's no, like, being an alpha female is the opposite end of the spectrum, right? It's not what the men does. You know what I mean? That makes them an alpha. Being an alpha female, that means you are in your ultimate femininity, right? And that's a very powerful thing, right? It's a powerful, like, you ever had a girl tell you to do something and you're doing it and you're like, yo, man, how this girl got me doing dishes and I'm over here doing the damn dishes? You know what I mean? It's the power of femininity, because a woman who just tells you, who just talks to you in that nice feminine voice, yo, it brings your guard down. You know what I mean? You're able to just be like, you know what? You're right. You know what I mean? Even if that's the power of femininity. So a lot of the times our women are we gotta learn how to communicate with each other, because we need each other, right? Talk into your man. Tell him how fly he is, right? Tell him how wonderful job that he's doing, right? Tell him, because a lot of time if he's not bringing in the money, or if he's not working, or if he's not bringing something financial, right? But you gotta understand, we live in the United States of America, which is a corporation. You know what I mean? This is a capitalist country.
I mean, the thing is that these societal constructs determine value.
Yes.
Right. And so if a man doesn't have a job, or he can't provide, we have to be mindful that, not that everybody thinks this way, that symbolizes that he doesn't have value. Right. Like he needs to go get it together. And once you start to feel like you're not valuable, and it starts to hit your self-esteem, and it hits it impacts your mental health, that affects your motivation, your creativity, you know what I mean? Your ability to critically think.
Yes.
Right. Like, so all of these things are intertwined. So we have to change and redefine how we see success, right? Because you could have a guy who has great character, you know, stand-up guy, loyal guy, you know, a man of his word, and he gets down on his luck financially. And, you know, does he not have value anymore? And he does. Men bring more to the table than just their paychecks.
Absolutely.
And I think we have to be able to note those things, their guidance, their advice,
just their
presence,
manhood,
their presence,
absolutely.
just simply just being who they are, right? Like you're valuable just because. I think that goes for women too, but I think because tonight's all about the guys, it's just, hey brothers, you guys are enough, regardless of how much money you make,
right?
You know,
and honestly, like, we got to know that.
Well, my father struggled with that. I mean, he worked 2 jobs all his life,
right?
And his main thing, even to the week before he ended up passing away, and I didn't know he was going to pass away, was around legacy and working to leave something for his kids. He was constantly crunching numbers, constantly thinking about how to pay this, do that, and how to help somebody, himself or someone else. That was a constant running tape in his head.
Yep.
You know,
but also he poured into you, because look how well you talk about your dad. You know what I mean? But that's why you turned out the way that you did. He poured into you.
Time, you know, he was good for calling me out the blue and just being like, "What's up, oldest daughter? I haven't heard from you in a while. You're one of my hardest working kids. What project you on now? Don't forget to slow down and say hey to your dad." You know, so yeah, you know, and that kept me grounded, and it reminded me to pause and slow down, and moments where I didn't feel like I was enough. That whole slogan that I say, bet on self, came from my father.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was like, baby, what you talking about? You better bet on yourself. You bet on yourself. You can never lose. You got everything you ever needed inside of you. He would say stuff like that to me.
And that stuck with you.
Stuck with me. Even and more now, because he's not here. I hear his voice. And I'm like, I know. You got this, baby. Bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. I love that.
Yeah. So you can't heal anything you won't face, though. So if you will not sort of sit with yourself and think about why you move the way you move when it comes to your finances, you can't fix it. Now, have you always been good with money?
Nah, absolutely not. You know, I've gone. That's why I'm kind of good in this field, because I know how it's like. I know I've gone through it. You know what I mean? Everything that you could think about, I've been broke. You know what I mean? I've been, you know, sitting there in child support, you know what I mean? Figuring it out, like, yo, how we going to do this? How am I going to pay this? Like, I go through real stuff, fam. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, when I'm talking to a client, male or female, I approach it as a very sensitive topic, because it treated as such. You know what I mean? You're dealing with people's, like, finances. This is a tremendous responsibility.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not, if I always tell clients, if I can't put you in a better position, or, you know, or offer you better features, I don't even want your business. You know what I mean? And I swear to God on that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want your business. You know what I mean? But most of the time, I'm going to put you in a better position.
Right.
Because I know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But it's a lot of times.
Talk to him, Jay.
Well, a lot of times it's like, yo, we don't value each other, because maybe you grew up with me, maybe you seen me at a certain time in my life when I wasn't, you know what I mean, who I am today. So now you don't really look at me as valuable. Whereas, like, yo, I'm low key, like, I'm the plug. You know what I mean? Low key, I'm the plug.
Right.
You know?
And financial products and strategies are, although they have some foundational things that you got to do, there's always new strategies, new ways of capitalizing on different times in the market, I would say.
Absolutely.
Because you got to know what to do when it's a bear market versus a bull market.
Absolutely.
You need to know, what to do when, you're in a place of wanting to buy a house, different strategies you can do in terms of your credit. A lot of people don't know I used to be a financial advisor before.
I know, you was telling me that. Yeah.
I went into being a clinical social worker. I think I've had at least 3 careers thus far, interesting enough. But I was a full service financial advisor, and the whole thing that motivated me to get my Series 6, Series 7, 63, and insurance stemmed from the poverty that I saw growing up, right? And that narrative of you live in the hood, you live in the ghetto, you live in the urban community, and it's underserved, and we're disenfranchised, and all of those things, right? Really was like, well, why is that always the case for us? So it made me pursue economics and Africana studies to really try to get a better understanding of financial know-how, right? Like, how did money really work? And I think that was a really smart thing that I did early on in life. So I bought a house at 26. I did a lot of things. And I also made a lot of bad moves too. Yeah,
that comes with the territory.
Yeah, like messing up your credit real young and having to rebuild it 2-3 different times. So yeah, definitely. So how did you come back from all of that? Like, seeing that now you're doing financial stuff, how did you come back from that?
Well, I'm not afraid to work. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid to sit my butt down and not party, not go out, you know what I mean? Not feel like I gotta have a girl around me, and say no, right? And just really sit down and focus on, what do you want to do with yourself, Jay? What is it that what is it that you want to do? How is it that you could position yourself to be, number one, a great father, a provider, and just really be there for you at the end of the day? And can I look myself in the eye? And so I really had to, God humbled me, where I had to just sit down, no going out, no friends, you know what I mean? And just really hit the books, right? Every money that you was getting, let's start stacking some bread, right? Let's start putting some money away. Take care of your responsibilities, right? Really come up with a game plan of how it is that you're going to, get out of this jam that you're in. And believe it or not, I'm still, in that game plan right now as we speak. You know what I mean? I put up a 10-year game plan, 10 years, and I'm in like year 5 right now. You know what I mean? I'm in year 5. So I plan all this stuff out. And, and once you plan certain things out, now you just, you're going through it. You're going to go through your highs, your lows, and all these different things, and you got to weather the storm, right? But at the end of the day, I had a blueprint, I had a plan, and I'm still just, maneuvering that plan. And I check that plan out every single day or every other day, right? Just like your F&A, just like your financial needs analysis. You got to be able to go through that and see what it is that how it is that you what you need to do. Maybe you may have to make some necessary adjustments, right? But at least you got that plan, and you could add towards it. You can, I don't really need to do that right now. Damn, I messed up on that. And every single day, you know what I mean? And man, and honestly, man, it starts with healing. I had to really heal myself.
Well, that leads me to what I want to ask you next. Right? I don't know who.
Somebody
I'm not taking no phone calls right now.
Man.
And I don't know who's calling that number.
Somebody calling.
Yeah, they calling back to back too. No phone calls right now, y'all. All right. So I want to know about your bet on self moments, right?
Yeah.
And you touched on going through some things in your own life, but bet on self moments are those moments where you say, you know what, if not me, then who? Right? And if not now, then when? Those opportunities in life where, despite your background, your upbringing, what your parents did or didn't do, you take control over your own life, your own destiny, and you really realize everything is within you.
Right.
So tell us about some of your defining bet on self moments, either something from the past, current, or something that's coming up in the future.
Yeah, so I believe like I'm going through my bet on self moment right now, because a lot of the times I'll be like, man, God, is this what you want me to do? Because this game ain't easy, man. This is a pretty hard industry. You know what I mean? Like constantly I gotta, take, whether that's your series 63, series 26, you know what I mean? Like
There's a lot of them.
I'm building up, I'm building up my clientele. I'm building up business. I'm learning. I gotta be a dad, I gotta deal with, I got family members who's, people asking me, hey, let me hold a couple dollars, all these different things, right? So I'm actually going through my bet on self moment right now because, it's a lot. And believe it or not, if not you, James Leveque, then who's gonna connect with the community? A lot of people tell me I have a great way with with young people, and I always thought like that's something that anybody could do, but nah, I learned this is a gift. This is a gift from the Most High to really get students to open up, get young folks to open up, and really once you get them to open up, you could kind of take them anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Me, I want to make sure I'm going to teach you this money game right now because that's going to be a very important aspect of your life. You know what I mean? Because you are living in America. And guess what? If not me, then who? You know what I mean? So I got to go through the process. I got to stay up late at night. I got to be like, nah, I ain't going to go today. You know what I mean? Although, sometimes I might, pop out with my boys here and there, you know what I mean? Have some fun, right? But for the most part, catch like, yo, I'm in the crib. I'm doing something. I'm busy. I'm working on something because that's what's going to help me be able to help my community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm actually going through my bet on self moment right now. And hopefully I answered that question.
No, you definitely did. We are almost wrapped up with another episode of Conversation with Coach La. I want to say thank you to everybody that's on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and LinkedIn that are tuned into the show. I appreciate you tuning in every Sunday right here on the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. And you guys know we are Boston's only Black-owned radio station that's on the iHeartRadio platform, and that is a big, big deal. So as we get ready to wrap up this conversation with Mr. Talk to Him, Jay.
Talk to him.
I like to sort of take our attention to what I like to call Coach's Corner. And it's a way where we just kind of wrap everything up in a nice little bow and get you guys to reflect and think about today's show. So tonight's Coach's Corner is really grounded in us thinking about unpacking our mindsets, right? And understanding how did we get to the mindsets that we have, especially about money. And to all the brothers out there, this one is really for you, right? Because you get the biggest bulk of being the provider, the breadwinner, right? And I think a lot of the money financial stresses fall on you, right? A lot of men won't even get married, won't even, consider, wanting to have children if they money in their paper is not right. And you have so much more to give than just your money. But at the same time, society has put a lot of pressure on all of us when it comes to money. So many of us carry financial trauma, and there's a revolving cycle sometimes of scarcity. It's a way of thinking. Some people call it a poverty mindset, right? But we can break free of that simply by starting to be grateful and think about abundance. Some people talk about crab in the barrel, right? There's enough space at the table. There's enough different opportunities for us all to eat. But sometimes we don't see it that way. But we have to be able to tap into our gifts. Some of us have gifts that we are not even using,
right? For
fear that, we're not good enough, or no one's going to, big us up. And this is where betting on self really, really comes into play. We have to redefine success and start prioritizing our mental health, our wellness, and not just wealth. Because some of us are just chasing a bag, and at the same time, we're dying on the inside. We're getting high, we're drinking all the time, and we're not eating well. And you ain't gonna live long enough to even use your money because you're living like that, right? So many people their money outlives them.
Mm.
So we got to take better care of not just our money and chasing the money, but we got to take care of our mind. Financial literacy must come with emotional literacy.
Yes.
The more you understand self, the more you understand why you move the way you move, you will be less likely to just go spend your money to be gambling it all away and buying these expensive things that you don't need, because you'll understand money is a tool. What you say about that? Talk to him, Jay.
I definitely agree with that, right? One of our mantras is money flows to me effortlessly in large amounts, right?
And I say money comes easily and frequently through my hand.
Talk to him. Yeah.
Listen, we can't talk about building wealth without addressing the wounds we carry about what it means to be enough, right? I'm going to say that again. We can't talk about building wealth without addressing the wounds that we carry about what it means to be enough, right? And I think that spans both genders, women and females, and both. So what do you think about that?
I definitely agree, right? I definitely agree. Like really just figuring out and unpacking who it is that we are, right? Who it is that we are. And that comes from, the mindset of having an abundance mindset instead of having a scarcity mindset, right? Depending on how it is that we grew up, right? Knowing that, you know what, that was an experience that I had coming up. Now this is totally different, right? So we got to really unpack some of the things that we've learned, right? And really understand, like, yo, this is every day that I wake up, I got a fresh new page to create something new. So money flows to me effortlessly. You know what I mean? That's something that you guys should be saying. Whatever your affirmation is, right? It could be I'm handsome, I'm bright, I'm whatever it is, right? We got to start really talking life into ourselves, right? And we don't really understand the power of words, right? Our words are everything. The way that we talk to ourselves, you know what I mean? And when I learned the power of words, I really started, watching what comes out of my mouth, because that's what I'm going to have. So, I speak blessings over my life. I speak protection over my life. You know what I mean? Everything that's happened to me is these are great things. You know what I mean? I have great people in my life. Look, I got this is like one of my best friends since I was in like high school. You know what I mean? And this is my man, 100 Grand. And he's out here with me on a Sunday. So I got good people in my corner. You know what I mean? And that's just because of the person that I am. You know what I mean? So, and I always say, man, you could overcome anything, man. Just watching what it is that you say to yourself, how it is that you talk, towards yourself. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't really realize how our words have power, right? There's a lot of power within what we say, and we just utilize words with whatever. Like, nah, man, we got to talk these blessings over us, right? And money flows to us effortlessly, right? In large amounts. It's coming to you, fam. Let's go. Talk to it, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, you have to have the ability to breathe deeply and make aligned decisions, and to know that your peace is not for sale, right? And so when we think about just betting on self, you are worthy of financial clarity and emotional freedom. And a lot of times that's just taking a step back and understanding, that you are not your money, right? You make money, and money is just a tool. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that 110%, and it's that's all it is. It's a tool. It's not, it doesn't, but that's that rap music, man. You know what I mean? That's that rap music. You know what I mean? Like, we be thinking like these rappers know what they be talking. These rappers are rappers. Okay. They put rhymes together. All right. Like, we give these celebrities all these things. Man, what about your community? People that's in your community that's doing the work, the police officers, the public school teachers, the firefighters, people that's around. Those are the real celebrities. You know what I mean? Those are the real celebrities. So we got to start really treating, people in our community with that same star power. You know what I mean? Because, like, man, that's why we in the predicament that we in right now as a community. There's no order. We need order in this community. You know what I mean? And that's why, we have to make sure that, we just get ourselves together, man. You know, I don't want to go too much in, you know what I mean? Because it is Father's Day. A lot of you gentlemen out there are doing a great job. You're doing the best that you could do. So congratulations on being a dad. Congratulations on, you know, celebrating Father's Day. Hopefully you got your foot rubbed today. Like I said before, you got your tummy rubbed. You got a good meal. All right. And you got told today that you're doing a great job and you are enough. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I appreciate you coming in and just talking and giving a just some guidance and just uplifting, especially our brothers. Again, you guys are enough. And that's another wrap. We're wrapping it up. Thank you for joining us on the virtual couch for another episode with Conversation with Coach La. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Coach
Talk
La.
to him, Jay. See y'all next week, Sunday, right back here.
Cheer.
Hey, y'all.
Nancia, Smokehouse, it's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach La. Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just call it Conversations with Coach La 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 La.